what do you think it is? Because I just anecdotally, just my own observations, it does seem like, and I want to be careful too, not to overly categorize, but a tendency for good white middle class, upper class, urban centered white women of younger to middle age. There's this anger, and it seems like not so much Hispanics and not necessarily so much in the African American community, but white liberal women are driving so much of this. And
yes, they are.
And allyship and this identity and allyship and aggressiveness and celebrating their trans child, or just weird things that I never thought would be part of our society. You said, yes, they are. I mean, this is kind of anecdotally, but it just seems like there's a spillover there, something going on in that demographic. I don't know if you had any insights about all that or any thoughts about that.
I have some thoughts about it. First thing I'll say is there is no such thing as a transgender child. There's no such thing as a child who was born in the wrong body. That's not real. Let me take it up another level. You know why there's no such thing as a transgender child?
Because God doesn't make
such
mistakes.
thing as a transgender person. That's not real. It's never been real. It's not real today, and it won't be real tomorrow. No one is born in the wrong body.
What about gender dysphoria then? How do you deal with that medical diagnosis?
Well, I'm going to take it back a step. Why in the world would we deal with that medically?
Yeah, exactly. It's a mental condition, right? I mean,
correct.
It's not.
And what's called gender dysphoria today, people are acting like a new kind of suffering has been discovered and that these children are suffering in a way that no one ever suffered before. It isn't true. It isn't true. I had, back in the late 70s and early 80s, along with, I would venture, the majority of gay men, I had what is today called gender dysphoria. Very common experience of effeminate boys and masculine girls who don't fit into society. As a child of 7, 8, and 9 years old, I truly believed I had been born in the wrong body, that I was supposed to be born with a vagina, that I had either made a mistake and sinned so badly that God was punishing me this way, or, I mean, I used to go to bed at night and pray that I would either wake up with a girl's body, or that I would wake up as a good and decent boy who didn't have the naughty thoughts that I had. That is gender dysphoria. I dressed up in girls' clothes. I envisioned what would my body look like if I had a vulva instead of a penis? Does this sound familiar to anybody? It should sound familiar.
Yeah.
Because this is what we're hearing, that these supposedly children who are suffering in a new and deeper way than anyone has ever suffered before. This is not new or real. You know what? This is called being a sissy boy or a butch girl, most of whom grow up to be gay. Transing children, not exclusively, but 75 to 80% of it is literally doing mutilating surgery to make them not gay. That's what it is.
Fascinating.
I am not different from these children today. They are not different from the kind of kid I was, or the kind of kid that so many boys and girls like me were. But thank goodness in those days, nobody thought, oh, I'd better block his puberty. I'd better get him prepared to have his testicles removed. This is the society we're living in. And you said a minute ago, Michael, you know, these women celebrating their trans kids, it's much worse than that. Do you know what transing your kid is? What these moms are doing? And it is 90 to 99% of them, it's mothers. This is something we already know. I'm going to wait for 2 seconds and see if it occurs to anybody. It's called Munchausen Syndrome by proxy. It's that thing you already know because you remember seeing it in movies like The Sixth Sense, where there's that scene where the ghost girl tapes her mother, killing her by spiking her soup with Drano. We've seen the movie of the week about this. We all knew what this was in the 90s, when mothers would poison their children or fake cancer in their children to get attention. That is what so-called trans moms are. They are personality disordered, abusive harpies. They are literally poisoning their children mentally and physically. And yet nobody is saying, holy shit, This is Munchausen's by proxy. Instead, we're going, she's the most loving mother in the entire world. Look how far she'll go for her trans daughter. It is sick. It is like looking at the devil and saying that, you know, it's the Archangel Gabriel. I mean, it just blows my mind.
It is unbelievable, but you know, it's from the data that I understand that 90% of the people that are young people, they have some sort of gender dysphoria. They grow out of it if they just allow it to develop, and
Yep.
And so to take such invasive approaches is, and then the mother to get their identity, or even the father, but it seems like
it's almost always the mother, sometimes the father, but no, it's not an even split. It's like 95% mothers.
So the mother gets her affirmations by showing how progressive she is and how loving she is and accepting and you know, the accolades by prancing their kid around.
Yes.
As that's sick.
Yes, it is. But again, it's not true that we don't know what we're seeing. We do know what we're seeing. We just need to be given permission to notice things. So that's what I'm trying to do on my show, and I'm trying to do when I talk to you here. We know who these mothers are. We knew who they were when we saw JonBenet Ramsey's parents, didn't we?
Yes.
Didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Pageant moms. Why is this okay now? How come JonBenet Ramsey being tarted up like a 6-year-old prostitute and danced on a stage for money and for her mother and father's adulation? Why were we horrified by that? But we cry tears of loving affirmation when we see these disgusting, self-absorbed, narcissistic women taking their boy children out to drag story hour or dressing their boy children up and having him dance on a damn stage for money. These women are literally pimping their children, and we clap for it.
Well,
I believe, talking about Munchausen's by proxy and transing your children, I believe that Munchausen syndrome by proxy is not a standalone condition or disease. It is a symptomatic sub-expression of borderline or narcissistic personality disorder. There's no such thing as a grown adult who is psychologically normal on every other axis, but just happens to have a condition where she needs to poison her children, but she's otherwise normal. Does that make any sense?